General Hospital's Jason makes a colossal mistake and a heartfelt gesture all at once. Hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. We get what General Hospital was going for by having Jason pay Jake's art school tuition. The hitman has no other means in this very moment to make up for the myriad ways that he didn't show up for his son over the years. Were we squeezed into his tiny black t-shirt hit him, we'd have done the same thing. But now we are left with a question. How are we supposed to feel about the fact that Jason, in essence, bought Jake's forgiveness? We know that Jason is the soap's halo-clad hero. No matter how many characters he's roughed up or orders he's executed for Sonny, Stone Cold is the good guy. Heck, even Maurice Benard has observed that Steve Burton's on-screen counterpart can do no wrong. Jason is treated as such a saint that we're meant to sympathize with him because he's being blackmailed to, wait for it, help the authorities instead of the crooks. That said, though Jason's financial support of Jake makes sense, it also rings hollow. Rather than be patient and do the work of reestablishing a relationship with his son, rather than earn his forgiveness, Jason has smashed his piggy bank and taken a shortcut. How resonant. And with Jake leaving for Spain, father and son will not be around each other enough to reconnect. Also, not for nothing, but wouldn't Jake's father have established some kind of trust fund for him years ago? A, in case of emergency, and B, in case Pop's dangerous line of work finally killed him in a he won't be coming back from the dead this time way. Would Jason have let old, and future, Flame Elizabeth struggle to raise her boys, including Jason's? The lights of Port Charles twinkled in the distance as Jason Morgan stood on the pier, his mind racing. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of the harbor, but Jason barely noticed. His thoughts were consumed with the plan, one that had seemed foolproof just hours ago, but now felt like the biggest mistake he had ever made. The stakes were higher than ever, and the lives of the people he cared about most hung in the balance. Jason had always been the enforcer, the man who handled the dirty work, the man who protected his family and friends at all costs. But tonight, he had made a decision that could change everything, and the weight of it was crushing him. It wasn't just any mistake, it was colossal. It had all started with a tip-off about a rival mob moving into Port Charles. The new players were ruthless, unpredictable, and willing to do whatever it took to seize control. Sonny Corinthos, Jason's best friend and boss, was away, dealing with another crisis. This left Jason to make the tough calls, and tonight he had made a doozy. Jason had received word that the rival mob planned to make their move at the docks. A massive shipment of weapons was coming in, and they intended to use it to assert their dominance. Knowing this, Jason had formulated a plan to intercept the shipment and send a clear message. Port Charles was Sonny's territory and no one else's. He had mobilized his crew and set the plan into motion. The docks were under surveillance, the shipment's route was mapped out, and everything was in place for a clean, efficient operation. But there was one thing Jason hadn't counted on: Sam. Sam McCall, the love of his life, had been out of town on a case, digging up dirt on the rival mob for a story she was working on. She hadn't told Jason, knowing how protective he could be. Sam had always been fiercely independent, determined to stand on her own 2 feet. It was one of the things Jason loved most about her, but tonight it had put her in danger. As Jason's men closed in on the shipment, they had encountered resistance, more than they had expected. The firefight had been intense, bullets flying through the night as the two sides clashed. In the chaos, Jason had spotted a figure darting between crates, moving toward the very container they were targeting. It had taken him a split second to recognize her, but it was long enough for his heart to sink. Sam was there, right in the middle of the danger zone. And in that moment, Jason's focus had wavered. He had hesitated, a fatal mistake. In his split second of indecision, one of the rival mobsters had taken advantage, pulling a gun and firing off a shot. Jason's instincts had kicked in, and he had returned fire, neutralizing the threat, but the damage was done. The shot had gone wide, missing Jason's intended target but striking a nearby fuel container. The explosion that followed had been catastrophic, sending flames and debris flying in every direction. The docks were instantly transformed into a war zone, and Jason's carefully laid plan was in ruins. But the worst part was Sam. Jason had watched in horror as the blast knocked her off her feet, sending her crashing to the ground. He had run to her, his heart in his throat, praying that she was okay. She had been conscious but shaken, her face pale as she tried to assure him she was fine. But Jason could see the pain in her eyes, the fear that she had barely escaped with her life. In the aftermath, Jason's men had managed to drive off the rival mob, but the victory was hollow. The shipment was destroyed, the docks were in flames, and Sam was hurt. And it was all because Jason had made a colossal mistake. He had put the woman he loved in danger. He had let his emotions cloud his judgment. And now he had to live with the consequences. Back at the penthouse, Jason couldn't stop replaying the night's events in his mind. Sam was resting on the couch, a bandage on her forehead and bruises marring her skin. She had insisted she was fine, that she understood why Jason had done what he did. But Jason couldn't shake the guilt that gnawed at him. He had never been good with words, never been able to express his feelings easily. But he knew he had to make things right with Sam. He couldn't let this mistake come between them. With a heavy heart, Jason went to the safe in his office and pulled out a small velvet box. He had been holding onto it for weeks, waiting for the right moment. But after tonight, he realized that there would never be a perfect moment. Life was too unpredictable, too fragile. Jason returned to the living room, his heart pounding as he knelt in front of Sam. She looked at him with a mixture of confusion and concern, and Jason took a deep breath, forcing himself to meet her gaze. "Sam," he began, his voice rough with emotion, "I know I messed up tonight. I made a mistake, a huge one, and I can't change what happened. But I want you to know that I love you more than anything in this world. I've been waiting for the perfect time to do this. But after tonight, I realize that I don't want to wait any longer." He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring, one that he had spent hours choosing, hoping it would be worthy of the woman he loved. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, there was silence. Then tears welled up in Sam's eyes, and she nodded, a smile breaking through the pain. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, Jason, I will." Jason felt a wave of relief wash over him as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It wasn't enough to erase the guilt or the fear, but it was a start, a heartfelt gesture that showed how much he cared, how deeply he loved her. As they sat together, holding each other close, Jason knew that he would do everything in his power to protect Sam and their future. He had made a colossal mistake, but he had also taken a step towards something beautiful, something lasting. In the end, it wasn't just about the mistake. It was about the love that had guided him through it, and the promise of a new beginning.